Welcome to today's edition of the Ril Dil podcast. I'm your host, Ril Dil, recording this on a Tuesday, episode 1001, as we discuss the world of sports and pop culture. As always, we appreciate all the support. You can like, subscribe, and share this podcast. The podcast will be available anywhere where podcasts are available, which, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, and so on. We got a big podcast for you, a heavy NBA podcast as we get ready for the playoffs tonight. You have, of course, the play-in, and to be honest with you, listen, there's one team that's relevant in terms of this play-in. There's one team that you should be paying attention to, and that is the Golden State Warriors. All these other teams have zero chance to do anything in the playoffs. Beyond this, they are teams with toxic situations or situations that are just that you wouldn't want to be, coaching situations that you wouldn't want to be in. I mean, you look through Sacramento Fire's a good coach. They have no clue what they want to do. What they're trying to do right now, what their identity is. You had the same three teams in the Eastern Conference playing every single year in regards to Miami, Atlanta, and Chicago. Congratulations on being the play-in, on living your NBA lives in the play-in, which they do, which they have now. Yeah, Miami a couple years ago went from play-in to NBA Finals. That's not happening this year. Won't happen, and you won't see that. I would venture to say you may never see a team go from the play-in to the NBA Finals. The league is too deep. The league is too talented, especially at the top. And in the Western Conference, again, Memphis is a absolute, is a shit show in terms of how they ended their season, in terms of their coaching situation, in terms of what direction the franchise is going in. We talked about it last podcast in regards to Ja Morant. So there's one team to focus on in this plan. That is the Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors coming off a brutal loss to the Clippers, the Los Angeles Clippers. It was a great game, one of the best regular season games I've seen this year, to be honest with you. Put it right there with the first Oklahoma City Cleveland game in Cleveland. But this is a game that that could come back and haunt Golden State in regards to rest. Especially if they don't win tonight. Now, listen, if Golden State wins tonight, then it kind of negates that Sunday loss, because they don't play. If they win tonight, they won't play until Sunday. So they would, in essence, still get 4 days off. So still get 4 days off. In comparison, they would have had a whole week off before they went to Houston. The Houston matchup would not be an easy matchup, to say the least. Houston matches up with Golden State. They're physical, they're athletic, they're long, they have size up front. So they were going to have their hands full regardless. But if they handle the business tonight, then they should be fully rested in terms of prep time to get ready for a very, very talented and a very athletic Houston Rocket team. Inexperienced in some spots with some of the young talent they have, but they do have some they do have a couple of veterans like Van Fleet, Dylan Brooks, and guys, those two guys in particular who have some championship, one of them, Van Fleet, has some championship experience, and Dylan Brooks has certainly been on a couple of teams that have had some playoff experience. In regards to the playoffs, listen, you have the matchups in this first round. The Western Conference by far is the more sexier of the matchups. It's not even close. When you talk about the Clippers, Denver, Lakers, Minnesota, those are conference finals type matchups. As a Laker fan, one of the worst matchups I thought that the Lakers could possibly get would be the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Minnesota is a big team. They're physical. They have size at every position with the exception of point guard. And who knows how much Mike Conley Jr. would play in the series based off the matchup. We'll see. But Minnesota's played great down the stretch. Julius Randle has found his niche within the team. And again, I know Luka has had his way with Minnesota, has had his way with Minnesota in particular in the playoffs last year. But still, this is a very dangerous Minnesota team. Minnesota could beat anybody in the Western Conference. They're really that talented of a team. They could beat anybody. They have a top 8 player in Anthony Edwards. They have playoff experience. They're a team that is extremely well coached. I think they have an excellent coaching staff in general. Even with their assistant coaches. So this is a team. And they have a coach that holds their players accountable. They have a coach that's not afraid to hurt feeling to take out a player and not afraid. He's not afraid to hurt feelings. He's absolutely not afraid to pull the rug on somebody down. He'll take Gobert out the game. He'll take Jay McDaniels out the game. He will bench a player if they're not playing well. He doesn't care about he does not care about hurt feelings. You think Mike Malone could care less about hurt feelings? David Finch doesn't care about hurt feelings as well. So that would be a knockdown, drag out series for the Lakers. I think the Lakers would win. I think that would lean towards that series going 6, maybe possibly 7. But the best series of the first round by far to me is the Clippers. Denver Clippers. The Clippers are playing great basketball right now. Kawhi Leonard has played some of the best basketball he's played in about 2 or 3 years. He looks as healthy as he's looked in the 2 or 3 years. And this, frankly, is the best I've felt about the Clippers in going into the postseason in about 5 years, going back to the bubble of 2020. I thought the Clippers going into that bubble of 2020 were going to win a championship, to be honest with you. And we saw what happened. They had a disastrous loss to the Denver Nuggets, blowing a 3-1 lead. Yeah, they got back to the conference finals in 21, but that was kind of fool's gold. Paul George played great, but no Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard has had trouble staying on the floor, frankly, ever since. Leonard, again, now looks as healthy as he has looked in a couple of years, and is starting to show you some flashes of Kawhi Leonard of San Antonio from a defensive standpoint. He's played great defense as well. He's not the player that he was in 2017 in 2017 or in 2019 for that matter. We understand that age and attrition have taken some of the athleticism away from him. But right now, we know he's a guy. We know that if he is healthy, he could be the best player in any playoff series. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They can be playing against Denver. They can be playing against the Lakers. They can be playing against OKC. Kawhi Leonard is capable. A healthy Kawhi Leonard is capable of being the best player in any playoff series. He's that talented, and he's a guy that will not melt under the bright lights. We know this for a fact. So the biggest knock on you can have on Kawhi Leonard is he just has not been able to stay on the floor. If you combine that with how James Harden has played. James Harden was tremendous in that game on Sunday with the 39 points and 10 assists. Scored like 13 of the last 14 points. 10 had a big overtime. Had a 2 3-pointers to start the overtime. So Harden probably will make All NBA this year. He probably will make third team All NBA. He's been that good this year and kind of has kind of resurrected his career in these last couple of years, in particular this year in particular. And the Clippers have a top 5 coach. We know that Ty Lue is a great playoff coach. We know that he can coach. This guy can make adjustments on the fly. He can make in-game adjustments. He can make adjustments from game to game. He'll go to an awkward. He'll switch up the lineup. He'll change again. Another guy who's not afraid to hurt his players' feelings. He doesn't care. He will absolutely go with the hot hand. He will absolutely make a necessary change. So Clippers are a very interesting team, to say the least. I think that I look at this first round. Certainly, the great matchups are in the West. I look at the Eastern Conference. It's kind of like I think that you will have a fascinating matchup with the Indianapolis. With the Indiana Milwaukee. I think Giannis is on a mission. To be honest with you, and I think that I really believe that Milwaukee has a chance to go further than maybe people expect them to go. Going into these in terms of these playoffs overall, I think there are 2 teams that can win the championship. I think Boston and OKC. I would say a possibility of the Clippers. I would say a possibility of the Clippers as a possible if everything goes right. If everything goes right, I could see Minnesota getting to a conference finals. If everything goes right, I could see the Lakers getting to a conference finals. If everything goes right, I could see the Bucks getting to a conference finals. If everything goes right, I could see Cleveland getting to a conference finals. That's the upsides for those particular teams. Boston, OKC are the two teams that can win a championship. And the Clippers, again, if you get Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy for 3 playoff series, you know, the Clippers getting there with OKC a conference final, and Kawhi is rolling. Who knows? Who knows at that point? Like you would have to. I would favor OKC, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Clippers beat OKC and went to the NBA Finals. Not at all. So we'll see what happens from that standpoint. But again, this playing is absolutely has no juice to it. You have just too many bad teams. You had a situation where the Southeast Division in the Eastern Conference, you have, Orlando wins that division with a losing record. With a losing record, Chicago, Miami, and Atlanta. Again, teams that just I don't see it with those teams. Those teams again. Chicago was entertaining down the stretch. We'll see Miami, the future of Miami. I don't know what Atlanta's going to do moving forward. A lot of question marks with these teams, more question marks than answers with these particular teams, uh, with the likes of Memphis and with the likes of Memphis and Sacramento and Dallas and what have you. So there's one team to watch in this play-in, and that is the Golden State Warriors for sure. Rory McIlroy finally gets his Masters. Been a long time coming. You're talking about a guy who, is regarded is clearly one of the most talented players, one of the most talented players of this generation. Has always had all time great talent. It was perplexing that it would take him this long to win his fifth major, to let alone a Masters. He did it the hard way. He was I thought that in order for him to win, that he probably had to win going away. That was not the case. He wins in a playoff. He has one of the wildest roller coaster final rounds that you'll ever see. 1 minute he's double bogeying, the next minute he has a 5-shot lead. Then the next minute he's fighting for his life, and just to get to 12 under. He gets to 12 under, and you figure that okay, you get to the last hole, and all you have to do is par the hole. He can't even do that. He misses a 6-foot par putt and bogeys the last hole and finds himself in the playoff with Justin Rose, but is able to win it in the playoff and gets a major that puts him in another realm, in another stratosphere as far as all time greats. There's not that many. There's only 6 players in the history of the sport that have won all 4 majors. It is one some of the greatest golfers of all time. Bobby Jones, Phil Mickelson, Lee Trevino, Tom Watson have not. Some of those, a lot of those guys have not won all 4 majors. It is a select few that have won all 4 majors. You're talking about of course, the Jack Nicklaus's of the world, the Tiger Woods, the Gary players, those particular those players. Like it's been a ton of legendary players, Seve Ballesteros that have not won all 4 majors, to say the least. So he puts himself now in very, very elite company. And I'm telling you right now, I think Rory's going to go on a run here. I really do. I think you know, I think when you take the pressure off, been go so long without winning, and it gets to a point to where people don't believe that you would even win another major, and you finally break through. The floodgates can kind of open up, and it did for Phil Mickelson. If you remember, Phil Mickelson was on the tour for 14 years. He went, his first professional win on tour was in 1990. He didn't win his first major till 2004. When he won that first major, then wins another 3 majors in the next 6 years. After the '04 Masters, and it ends up for his career. He has, as of right now, he has won 6 majors in his career. So that 2004 majors really opened it up for Phil Mickelson, and went on to win 2 more Masters. And again, I think Rory will go on a run here. And I'm not gonna say he's gonna challenge Tiger Woods' 15 majors, or even, or God forbid, even Jack Nicklaus' 18 majors. No, but he definitely could get to 8 to 10. Can get to 10 majors. I could easily see him getting to 10 majors. Remember, he's only 35 years old. When he was winning, he was young. I mean, he started winning. He won his first major in 2011. He was 21 years old when he won his first major. He won. He won quick. He won. He was winning majors like left and right. So from 2011 to 2014, he won 4 majors. His last major win, he was 24 years old. Like I said, we thought this guy was on a Tiger Woods type track, to be honest with you. That's how talented it was. That's why I could never understand. And he didn't have any major, and he never had any catastrophic injuries that completely shut that. Where he had some nagging injuries here and there, but nothing that took him off the course. That curtailed his career. Nothing like that. So it was again a mystery. It was a mystery on why he could not win more majors. And now that he's broken through, I could see him going on a nice run here as the pressure has been off. And the next major would be PGA Championship. That'll be in Qualo. Um, that would be in Quail Hollow in North Carolina. He's won on that course 4 times. He has had enormous success there. He and of course we know what the damage he does at the U.S. Open. U.S. Open, he's been knocking on the door to win another U.S. Open. He's finished number 2. He's finished runner up in the last two U.S. Opens. So he can have a big year here. I can see Rory winning another major, and like I said, would not be surprised in another 5 to 6 years if he has 8 or 9 majors in his trophy case. But a big time win for Rory McIlroy, a well liked. He is a well liked golfer, a hugely popular golfer on tour. Well, of course, obviously you have to respect him if you play golf, but just everybody seemed to be rooting for him, including myself, was rooting for him to win this Masters, and he closed the deal on Sunday in dramatic fashion. Around the NBA, the NBA season, of course, wrapped up on Sunday. OKC, you have 360-win teams in OKC, Boston, OKC, Cleveland, and Boston. OKC joins a select company of winning 68 games. That's the most games the team has won in close to a decade. You have to go back to the 73-win Warriors of 2016, who won 73 games. Boston last year won, I believe, 66 or 64. You've had 164. So they are in rarefied air in terms of some of the all-time great teams, in terms of some of the all-time winningest teams in NBA history. Matter of fact, the Bulls won only the Warriors, Bulls. You had a Lakers team that won 69 games, of course, back in '71. That Will Chamberlain, Jerry West led team. So this is rarefied air for a team to win 68 games, and on top of it, have the highest point differential of all time at 12.9. And that number actually dropped. It was 13. It was 13 for a couple of weeks before they had a couple of losses, a couple of blowout losses to the Lakers in Houston in the last couple of weeks. But OKC walks out of this season as clearly the best regular season team. And now, best regular season team, SGA is going to win MVP. I know there's been a strong push for Joker, but listen, SGA is the MVP. You're the best player on a team that wins 68 games and has a historical. In the Western Conference that was loaded. The Western Conference, if you won 50 games in the Western Conference, that's a hell of a year. Like, it's a hell of a year if you won 50 games or more in the Western Conference. The Western Conference was absolutely loaded this year, especially up top. And even at the bottom, the teams were not bad. They're not that. You have about 2 bad teams in the Western Conference right now. Portland, you want to say, is a bad team. Of course, New Orleans is a horrible team. But even, there were points in the season where Dallas was an excellent team, even after, what happened. But for the most part, the Western Conference had about 13 or 12 very strong teams for the most part in the out of the 16 teams. So I think that OKC goes into these playoffs as the team to beat SGA in the Western Conference. SGA wins the scoring championship. You see Joker average a triple double, first center to average a triple double in his career. Certainly, if they've been keeping stats on block shots, I'm certain that Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell both would have had years where they would have averaged a triple double. I think Joker had the best statistical year of any player since Will Chamberlain. To be honest with you, he was that great. When you look at now, forget about just having a triple double. You're talking about finishing top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists. He shoots over 55% over 56% from the field and 40% from the 3-point line. No player has done that ever and had with the efficiency and in terms of averaging a triple double. But despite all the great things that happened in this NBA season, a lot of toxic teams in the NBA season, and I'm starting with these two that you're looking at on the screen now, the Phoenix Suns and Philadelphia 76ers, the two biggest disappointments by far in the NBA season. There were a lot of disappointments. There were a few disappointments, but these teams, when you look at the future of these two teams, it is bleak to say the least. Phoenix, Kevin Durant more than likely is going to get traded. They're going to be on their 4th coach in 4 years. And by the way, who the hell wants that job? You have an owner that does not have a clue what he's doing, that, treats the Phoenix Suns like a shiny toy that they are. They don't have draft capital until for the rest of the decade. Their draft status is they're fucked. They're completely fucked from that standpoint. At least the Sixers could possibly get Cooper Flag or another top pick this year in this year's draft, so they have that going for them. But they have a situation that's not that much better. They will return Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey to a situation where who knows when Embiid moving forward. Paul George is not getting any younger. You have Ty Maxey. Okay, he can be an all-star caliber player, but that situation is not going to improve that much. So that, those situations, along with the New Orleans, you have the Pelicans, which is a shit show. Who knows what happens with Memphis when they get eliminated in the first round or in the play-in? Do they trade John Morant? That's a coaching spot that could be up for grabs. We mentioned New Orleans. New Orleans got rid of. New Orleans has a new general manager in Joe Dumars. We know what Dumars did for the Pistons. Helped bring them a championship in 2004. So he knows. So that's a solid hire to say a great hire to say at least. He has his work cut out for him. They have a lot of assets, but again, hey, they have a player that cannot stay on the floor in Zion Williamson. I would try to move Zion Williamson myself, unless you feel like you can get the right training staff to help keep him healthy. But if I'm Joe Dumars, one of the first things I'm gonna try to do is try to move Zion Williamson and try to get it. Hopefully I can get Cooper Flag or get another possible franchise caliber player out this draft, which is seemingly strong up top. So again, you have a lot of bad situations in the NBA right now. I mean, Dallas is a shit show. I'm sorry, it is. Kyrie, that injury is going to last until this year, until who knows, half of next year. How many games he could miss? We know what transpired with Luka. Sacramento is Sacramento. There could be some question marks out of a lot of teams that even get eliminated. What's going to happen with Milwaukee and Denver and those two superstars? But in terms of the toxic teams, there are a lot. There are more toxic situations now than I've seen in a long time, to be honest with you. And if you're a coach and you want a job, I'm telling you right now, if I'm Mike Malone, I'm going to be extremely patient on my next job. And even if I'm assistant coach like Sam Cassell, I'm not taking it. Listen, that Phoenix job is a loser. I wouldn't touch that job. I absolutely would not touch that job. Memphis job is actually a pretty good job. Even if you trade Morant, they have some young talent. They have an excellent general manager. They have great talent and player development. That's still a solid situation. I know it hasn't. They're not going to end the season well, but there's still that's still that situation is still not that bad. Philly is a shit show. We already mentioned Phoenix, New Orleans. Again, you have Joe Dumars, and you have some assets. So if I don't know what they're going to do with Willie Green. I think Joe Dumars probably will want to bring in his own guy because we saw how that worked out in Denver. When the general manager doesn't have where either a coach inherits a general manager or a general manager inherits the coach, it really some more times than not that does not work out well. So I would think Willie Green probably will be out of a job in these next couple of days. That Joe Dumars would want to come in and bring in his own coach. It only makes sense. So if you're a coach that needs a job, the pickings are slim to say the least in these NBA streets. Who won the week? Of course, Rory McIlroy, major number 5, his first Masters. We talked about just how impactful this major could propel the second half of his career. Again, only 35 years old. We can see him going on a major run here, to say the least, and possibly get to double digits in terms of majors. He has 5. He's only 35 years old. There's a lot of great golfers. The golf game is as deep as far as talent as it's ever been. That's why it's so hard for these guys to go on these runs where they win in multiple majors. I don't see you're going to see a guy win multiple majors in a year in a long time. And if Rory doesn't do it this year, I don't see it's going to be. I don't think we'll be done anytime soon because they are so much the field, especially with the American golfers, is so talented. The American golfers right now. I know, of course, Rory is not American, but the depth of talent in American golf right now is serious. So you have a lot of talent, but Rory McIlroy definitely wins the week. We're going to continue our series, Best of the 21st Century. This week, we are looking at what I feel like, in my opinion, was the last great gangster movie. American Gangster was starred Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. Came out in 2007. It grossed $269 million, had $100 million budget. Directed by Ridley Scott, written by Brian Glazer. Glazer. We know some of the work that he's done, and we know some of the work that, of course, that Ridley Scott and Glazer has done. Ridley Scott and Glazer have done. This was so. To give you some background, it comes out in 2007. Denzel and Russell Crowe were probably in competition for best actor from like not from like the best actor on the planet from like 2000. I want to say from 99 to around 2007. So here's what so let me give you a 10-year run that Pro had from 97 to 2007. LA Confidential, The Insider, Gladiator, Proof of Life, Denzel Washington, and he had 3 straight years. He has 3 straight years. Pro has 3 straight years where he's nominated for Best Actor, winning, of course, in 2000 with Gladiator. He easily could have won in 2001 with Beautiful Mind. A lot of people think he should have beat out Denzel, Beautiful Mind, but they gave Denzel. They gave Denzel the career. Denzel should have won Best Actor years before. I mean, especially for Malcolm X. So had no problem with Denzel winning for Training Day, but most people thought that Beautiful Mind, that Russell Crowe should have beat out. That Russell Crowe should have had his second straight Oscar in 2002. Excuse me, most people thought that Crowe should have had a second Oscar in 2002 with A Beautiful Mind over Training Day. But again, he nominated for Best Actor in 2000, 2001, 2000, nominated for Best Actor in 2000, 2001, 2002, and a lot of people thought he should have won. Like I said, those in 2000 and also in 2000 and in 2001 and 2002. From that, you look at Denzel from 95 to 2007, Denzel, uh, when it was on just an incredible run of movies where you're talking, we go from you look at 2007 as a whole for movies, and it was just a great year for movies in general. You had There Will Be Blood, you had No Country for Old Men, you had Juno come out, you had Eastern Promises, Atonement, uh, you had Zodiac, The Bourne Ultimatum, Knocked Up, 300, 310 to Yuma, Super Bad. So 2007 was a big year for movies in general. This movie, you know, you have a movie. This movie was so well written, and I thought that having the two characters not meet until the end of the movie, basically, it was like basically a 2 hour, 2.5 hour build up. The movie was 2 hours and it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. There's a unedited version of this movie. You can get it on DVD. That's like 2 hours and like 2 hours and 57 minutes, where it was some scenes. It was the unedited version. The version that people saw in the theaters was 2 hours, about 2 hours and 40 minutes. They would meet up, of course, to the last 15 minutes of the movie, and it was a brilliant 15 minutes of the movie with those characters. It basically led up everything that led up to them finally meeting, the interrogation scene, and what have you. Um, and then it basically tells a story of Frank Lucas and Richie Roberts, and Richie Roberts bringing down Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas was one of the most notorious heroin drug kingpins of the 70s, and basically was a guy. These are two characters that were completely the opposite. I mean, you have a cop who personal life is in shambles, separated from his wife. He's on seemingly was not the greatest father. Was running the streets. Was a player. Was a just his personal life seemed to be a shit show versus a gangster who was one of the most notorious heroin dealers of the 70s, who took his mom to church, lived a life where everything was organized. He learns from Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy Johnson, of course, who was depicted by Lawrence Fishburne in the Cotton Club. Also later, Fishburne's, to me, the role that changed Fishburne's career, took it to another level, was a star-turning role for Fishburne. Hoodlum, which was also a tremendous movie, a great gangster movie. You want to go see, if you want to learn about the history between Dutch Schultz, Charlie Luciano, Madame Sinclair, and that whole story that was depicted. Clarence Williams, who played Bumpy Johnson in American Gangster, played a bad guy in Hoodlum. So just a great cast, just all around. I mean, you look at the cast of this movie. Um, Obviously, you have Denzel, the two Titans in Denzel and Russell Crowe, but as a supporting cast, you have Josh Brolin, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who played Huey Lucas, Ted Levine. You have Roger Gunnar Smith, RZA, Ruby D, who ended up getting an Oscar nomination, Carla Guino, Ruben Santiago Hudson, who was his bodyguard, Armand Asante, Cuba Gooding Jr., who played Nicky Barnes. This was a great cast. This was a great cast, a deep cast. And, I think the thing about this movie that stands out was this idea of a guy in Frank Lucas who clearly was a killer, was a bad guy, but really was ahead of his time in terms of the business model. He completely disrupts the order of how things were done in terms of the mafia. He cuts out the middleman. He goes to Southeast Asia to get the heroin. And he can, like I said, he does something that had never been done before. He transcended drug the way drugs were moved. Like no one had ever done it. No one had ever went straight to the supplier, and like no, that had never been done before. Like he goes out there, he goes to Bangkok and Thailand, had a connect through his cousin who was in the who was in the service at the time, and again, it was there was one scene where the dude Richie Roberts is telling one of the law enforcement purpose, he says, "Who's Frank Lucas? What family does he work for?" Well, he doesn't work for a family. He has his own organization, and the guy basically says, "No, no nigga has ever done what the mafia has been able to do in 100 years." So he was that ahead of his time, and again, he learned from Bumpy Johnson. I mean, he drove for Bumpy Johnson for 15 years. Bumpy Johnson, if you don't know the story of Bumpy Johnson was a um, highly intelligent man. Wrote poetry. Bumpy Johnson played chess. Bumpy Johnson, if you look at the first part of the movie, the first scene of the movie, Bumpy Johnson gets Frank Lucas's wheel spinning about. He gives, in essence, without I don't think he even knew that he gave Frank Lucas the idea of cutting out the middleman. He gave him that idea as he watched Frank Lucas watched him. He has the heart attack and basically dies in his arms. Dies in his arms. So he was a transcendent drug kingpin, and again, a guy who lived a life. He had his clubs, he had his real estate, but really, he lived. He was not about the flash. He wasn't about drawing a lot of attention to. Excuse me, drawing a lot of attention to himself. He was isolated. Uh, he was the polar opposite of what Nicky Barnes. I mean, Nicky Barnes was on the cover, calling him was on the cover of a magazine, calling himself Mr. Untouchable. There's a scene in the movie where he chastised his younger brother Huey about the suit he was wearing and saying you're too loud. The loudest man, he said, the loudest man in the room is the one that's going to get arrested. The loudest man in the room is the weakest man in the room. He says you basically have a arrest me. You have a sign with that suit saying arrest me, which basically was completely hypocritical because as he goes to the Ali fight, he has the chinchilla hat and coat. And by the way, that was not Frank Lucas. Denzel Washington, watching interviews with Denzel Washington about this movie on Charlie Rose, when Charlie Rose interviewed him back in when it came out. Denzel Washington said it was not the chinchilla coat that got them busted. It was because everybody had fur coats and stuff. He said it was the fact that he and Frank Matthews were gambling, like were going back and forth with how much money they were waging on the fight. That it got up to like $500,000, and then the feds was like, "Well, who is this dude that has $500,000 to gamble on a fight?" And that's how they found out about Frank Lucas. The Frank Matthews story actually is something to check out too. Frank Matthews has been disappeared 51 years ago. It has never been found. Like Frank Matthews ran heroin through Baltimore and through the East Coast. He was a known drug kingpin in his own, a legendary drug kingpin in his own right. You can go check out that story. That is a wild story. How this guy just could, even up to this day, no one knows where Frank Matthews. There speculation that the mafia had him killed, but there's no proof of it whatsoever. So that's an interesting story. But Frank Lucas was connected to all these guys. He's connected, of course, to connections to Bumpy Johnson. He has connections to Nicky Barnes, Frank Matthews, the five families during that particular time, the five mafia families during that particular time up in New York. He was connected to all of that. And he did it, he absolutely did it his way. Again, no one ever sold drugs. No one ever had conducted business the way he conducted business. He conducted business like a CEO. He ran his family like a mafia family, and like everything was organized. Everything, his family. And there's a story in the New Yorker called "The Return of Superfly." I was certainly it was an article in the New Yorker written back in 2000 called "The Return of Superfly" that was written by Mark Jacobson, who was one of the writers on the movie. Mark Jacobson was one of the writers on the movie, and basically Frank Lucas said he didn't deal with city people. All Everybody that worked for Frank Lucas was family. He called his family from North Carolina. From North Carolina, they came up about. He said they came up like the Beverly Hillbillies. It was about 30 of them, if not more, came up, and everybody that everybody he was connected to in terms of working for him was family. so that he didn't trust people in the city whatsoever. So he insulated himself that much more by just having all family members working for him. Again, the movie itself, this like again, I think this movie now you want to knock the movie from the standpoint of how long it was. There's a lot of story to tell. There were certain parts of the story that they actually had to cut out. Like I did in some research I was doing, like when when he went out to the jungle to get to when he went out to Southeast Asia to Bangkok Thailand, he almost lost his life. Like there was shootouts. He said he got there were stories that he got half of his dope stolen. There were people that were trying to take it from him. There were people that died with I mean, he barely survived that. Like he basically was risking his life going out there by himself, basically with no protection. In essence, no protection. I mean, it was his cousin, and he had a pistol as far as they gave him a gun as because he was posing as military, but he basically was out there by himself in essence, and he almost lost his life. So there was so much story to tell that it was almost necessary. When I did the research on this, it was almost necessary that this movie had to be 2 hours and 35, 2 hours and 40 minutes. That 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like it had, they let a lot. I'm sure they left like any movie. They let a lot on the cutting board, but there was so much story to tell because this guy has such a complex and he lived such a. I mean, again, Frank Lewis just died recently. I think he lived till he was 88 years old. Died at the age of 88, so he lived a long life. And of course, he gets out in 1991. And everybody, he talked. Everybody knows he talked to the feds. Like that, his sentence was supposed to be 40 years. It ends up getting cut to about 15 years. So he clearly snitched. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no two ways about it. He snitched on the cops. He snitched on some a couple of gangsters. He snitched on the cops. That's what made the guy his sentence cut his sentence cut because all the cops that he basically put in business that he was paying off that special investigative that SIU unit, and you saw that played by, of course, Josh Brolin played Lupo played Trupo, played the special unit, special agent Trupo, and he was one of the main ones, one of the main dirty cops that Lucas paid off. But again, great storytelling. This is Denzel and Russell Crowe at the top in 2007. These guys were at the top of their games, really at the top of their games in 2007. I thought that Crowe I thought they complemented each other extremely well, and they had to make up for Virtuosity. Remember, 1995, these guys were in a movie called Virtuosity, which probably is probably Denzel. I would have to, I would if we were ranking Denzel, Washington, and Russell Crowe movies, that Virtuosity probably it ranks as their worst movie, the worst movie they ever made. So they had to make up. I mean, you can't have two guys of that stature uh, make a movie like that without redeeming himself. And it was worse for Denzel because in '95, remember Denzel in 1995, he has an Oscar. It had multiple Oscar nominations. Crowe at that time in 1995 was relatively unknown, so it was it was more understandable for Crowe to make that movie. It made more sense for Crowe to make that movie than Denzel. I don't know why. I don't know how in the world Denzel thought that movie that was appealing, an appealing script. But whatever. That's one small blip on a historic career. But these two guys complement each other perfectly. Contrast in personalities on the screen. The characters that they played were very complex characters, very complex and nuanced characters. And again, to me, with all due apologies to Gangster Squad that came out in like 2017, the recent movie with based off Jimmy Hoffa that came out like not too long ago. This was the last great gangster movie that was made. It really was. When you really think about it, and you gotta go back. If you want to go back to gangster films that beyond this, you gotta go back and go into the '90s. You start talking about Hoodlum. You start talking about Carlito's Way, but that's in the '90s. In terms of the 2000s, this was the last great gangster film. Um, even being 2 hours and 40 minutes long, a very much a rewatchable film with two legendary actors at the height of their powers, and I certainly recommend it. So, American Gangster, our latest on in terms of best of the 21st century. And if you want to watch it now, it is on Stars right now. If you want to watch it on cable cable television. I'll finish off with some real thoughts on Nico Amaleva, the former quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers. Of course, he signed he signs a deal in high school for $8 million, 4 year deal, $8 million. Now, a couple years later, 3 years later, he wants $4 million. Tennessee basically says no dice. So he's in the transfer portal. He's in the transfer portal awaiting another deal. Here's what I'm gonna say this. This is the game. Okay. This is absolutely the game. And listen, you could ask for more money. Hey, coaches, listen, coaches do it all the time. Coaches bounce from school to school. They bounce because they bounce. You know why they bounce for more money. So I don't want to hear Mario Cristobal. I don't want to hear any coaches sitting on this high horse about this is not the way we would do it. This is not the way. It's not how it works at Miami, or this is not how it works at Tennessee. The bottom line is the reason why Tennessee was not willing to pay him $4 million is very simple. He's not a great quarterback. If this guy were a Heisman level quarterback, he could name his price. Get the fuck out of here with these coaches with this sitting on this high and mighty bullshit. The reason again, and that's the game. You can ask for more, like you can ask for more money if you feel like somebody's willing to pay it. Then there is nothing wrong. I don't see. There's nothing wrong with him asking for more money. Now, was he misadvised by his father? Absolutely, because the bottom line is he is he is a quarterback. Now again, he's projected in 2026 to be a first round quarterback. He is. He's projected to be a first round quarterback. But when you look at the highest paid NIL players in college football, right? So you go down the list here. You have Arch Manning's number one at $6.5 million. Okay, he has yet to prove himself. By the way, he's yet to prove himself, but he's going to be the starting quarterback for a Texas Longhorn team that could compete for a national championship this year. At number two, you have at number two, you have Carson Beck just got $4.3 million from the Miami Hurricanes. Nico versus Carson Beck, not a big difference. I would lean towards Carson Beck, but Carson Beck, if you watch Carson Beck this past year, Carson Beck played like shit. But somebody was willing to give him $4.3 million. It was Miami. Jeremiah Smith, the top receiver in college football, and would be a top 5 pick in next year's draft. $4 million. That's easy. That one's easy. BJ Lagway, quarterback of Florida Gators, gets $3.8 million. Considered to be one of the best returning quarterbacks in the SEC and played great down the stretch if you watch Florida. So number five, Lamar Sellers get from South Carolina, $3.7 million. Gad Newsmeyer from LSU, he gets $3.6 million. Kay Klubnik from Clemson got $3.3 million. Drew Aller from Penn State, $3.2 million, led his team to the Final Four in the college playoffs this year, and expected to be one of the top quarterbacks coming back next year. Sam Levitt from Arizona State got $3 million. And number 10, Bryce Underwood, the number one rated quarterback coming out of high school, got $2.9 million from Michigan. So here's the thing. His father completely misgauged, up until this point, misgauged the market, misjudged the market. And, if you make the decision to ask for $4 million, right, you have to think to yourselves, well, what happens if they don't give us this $4 million? They're probably thinking, hey, if Tennessee doesn't give us the $4 million a year, somebody else will. As of right now, no one else is going to come close to that number. Matter of fact, there are reports out there now that say There are schools that are waiting for that price to waiting for his price to drop to $1 million. So clearly, this young man got some bad advice. Clearly, but guess what? That's the game. Like that, I have no problem with it. That is that when you're dealing in this game of NIL, when you want to negotiate, sometimes guys become free agents and they misjudge the market. It happens. He has to learn. You got to learn the hard way. Yeah, you got to learn the hard way. That's all there is to it. I have no problem with him going out there and getting burnt. I have no problem with Tennessee going out there and saying, "Hey, we don't think you're a $4 million a year quarterback." No problem. But if you're Tennessee, again, my biggest problem is the hypocrisy of these coaches sitting on this again, sitting and passing judgment on this young man, on the athletes for asking money as if they're greedy or something. Like, no, you do this shit. The coaches do this shit all the time. Coaches do this happens in college football with coaches leaving and wanting more money all the time. Now he chose to hold out. That was his right to hold out. He took a risk. He's no longer a Tennessee Volunteer. And again, like I said, he had to know, his pupils had to know that this was a possibility. And again, I watched a lot of Tennessee football this year. The guy's okay. He's an okay quarterback. He's okay. He was slightly above. You want to say above, slightly above average? That's being kind. Slightly above average. He's not a game changer. He's not a guy that's going to win. That's going to contend for the Heisman. I don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Will he get drafted? Sure, he'll get drafted. But he has the right though to ask for as much money as possible as he wants to ask for. I have no problem with that. And I have zero problem with it. This is the game right here. This is the game right now. This is where it's at. And fans can be turned off by it. I don't give a shit. The coaches can be turned off by it. I don't give a shit. College football for years, for the better part of 100 years, up until the last 5 years, have been making money, billions of dollars off the backs of these guys. Period. Like coaches, everybody, presidents, everybody have been making money off these young men, off these young men. Period. And the majority of them being being African American young men. So now the game has shifted. Are there some stuff that is it the Wild Wild West? It sure is. There could be some better stuff in place. There could be some better stuff in place in terms of this. Sure, is there a system that's still under development? Yes, but I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a quarterback. There's going to be somebody who is a Heisman Trophy winner that's going to hold out. If you come this is going to discourage quarterbacks or players from holding out, if they want to get the right number, you think fucking again. There's going to be in the near future a guy who is absolutely a top pick, a Heisman Trophy caliber player that's going to hold out. This is not going to start. Players are not going to look at this dude and say, "Hey, let's not hold out or ask for more money," because there are going to be players who are clearly better than this guy, asking for more money, and if you don't give them the amount of money, somebody else will. Period. So this guy, he made a poor choice seemingly because he made a poor choice because he's not going to get $4 million, and at this point, he'd be lucky. He might get the $2 million that he might have to take a pay cut, but he took the risk and he got burnt, and that's the game. The agents do it all the time in professional sports. This is professional sports now. Fuck this. This is not in the college sports. That collision shit is over with. This is pro sports right now. So what happened happened. I have no problem with him. I have no problem with the University of Tennessee. That's going to wrap it up for this next edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Enjoy the games tonight. I will see you next time. So long.